city. And what happened was there were 4 results for expressions in humans and 1 result in nature. The 4 results in humans was, 1 was that they were very confused, or I'm sorry, the first one was that they were violent and throwing things and just extremely erratic. And they in the report they didn't explain why these different things happen. But the first one was violence and erratic behavior. The second one was confusion. The third one was no change. And the fourth one was extra human abilities such as telekinesis, telepathy, and other powers, superpowers you could say. Basically, it's the innate soul capabilities. And then the other thing that happened to nature was that the nearby pond, which was heavily polluted, was completely cleared of pollution. So now, my studies in plasma physics, torsion physics, and psychology and such have led me to be able to understand why we're getting these 4 different expressions in consciousness whenever scalar waves are pulsed. First of all, what is a scalar wave? A scalar wave is a wave that actually pulses the aether. Imagine you have a braided lattice or lace of energy, if you will, and you send, and that it's in an ether. It's in like a plasma, a gel, and it's 3-dimensional. You know, it's not just a 2-plane flat lattice. It goes left and right, all different directions. And you send you push through, you send a push through the aether, and it actually will pulse all the waves, and it creates a potentiality wave is what it does, because it takes all the waves and it raises them up and lowers them, so that it expands the potentiality of every wave. It amplifies it. So what's happening during this amplification is that what we call atoms, which are really very tiny black holes, are kind of knocked off kilter, and that swaying actually polarizes them and causes them to be negatively or positively charged. So we're having this, everything is becoming polarized, becoming more energetic. And those that are experiencing extreme violence, situation 1, extreme violence and throwing things and erratic behaviors, they are having a lot of difficulty harmonizing this polarization. I mean, they're literally existing at, they're either they're existing at both ends and trying to pick a side, which it just doesn't work. It creates short circuits. Which is why the violence ensues. They feel like they have no other option, nothing's making sense to them, so they become really violent. Then we have situation 2, where people were becoming confused. This is basically a watered down version of the violence. They are unable to make sense of the polarization of their thought processes, because everything is becoming polarized. It's every frequency. All frequencies, they're becoming amplified. When something becomes amplified, you have your line of neutrality, and you have your scalar wave. It goes up and down and up and down. So that amplification is making the up way up, the down way down, so forth. So, and they're not able to make sense of these 2 opposites, because the truth of the matter is there are no opposites. There is the one thing that is experiencing greater or lesser frequency. The one thing is consciousness, or unconditional love. They say that God is love. That's because consciousness, which is God, unified consciousness is God, is unconditional love. And unconditional love is the force, it's the force that is life. And when we're experiencing frequencies of this, lesser frequencies are basically lesser potencies of love, even fear, even hatred, and higher frequencies are it's more of that truth of what we are, of love. So the higher frequency you are, the more you actually see the truth of your reality without the distortion. You're becoming the constant. Becoming the constant. Low frequencies are very big. They go up and down, and they're very slow and big. High frequencies are very. Their frequency of up and down is a lot. They have more up and down, but the oh, I'm having a blank here. It's not the trough, but the wavelength. I guess the wavelength is shorter. So you're closer to the constant. You're more like that neutral line, which is the constant, which can see from both sides. So that's why we have, back to the reason why we have the group 2 people that are confused. They're unable to process the purpose of both of these polarities. Then we have group 3, which had no change. Now, let's look at our current reality before the addition of the scalar waves and see that we were in a state of polarization already. That's just been amplified recently, obviously. So these people that are having no change are basically just being able to harmonize the change enough to keep their reality the same as it was. Okay, they're still, you know, blocking out certain things. You know, they're pretty much like the naive sheep of the group. And then you have, and now not all of the naive sheep of the group are going to be experiencing, you know, group 3, excuse me, group 3's effects of, you know, no change. They're, you know, the only way for you to assure that you're not going to be one of the first 2 groups, at least, is to do your best in trying to harmonize every situation that comes to you. And group 4, the 4th was, of course, the extra human powers, telekinesis, telepathy, and those types of things. Now, how is this group getting that? Well, the scalar waves are creating a wider emotional range and a wider 4th dimensional mind-time plane as well. They're basically giving us access to the Akashic records, because they're taking your consciousness, which is normally working on this, you know, it's got its own little scalar level, and it doesn't cross that. And these new scalar pulsing in just woof, expands that level a ton. And you have all this new stuff you got to deal with. You know, global finances are crumbling, education's, you know, basically mind control, indoctrination. Just all these things. Medicine is actually a way to kill people. You know what I mean? Just everything is turned on its head. The scalar wave has flipped everything on its head. So what it's doing is it's creating a wider point of view. You're now peering behind the veil. You know, what you once thought the doctor was there to help you. And, you know, and even the doctor maybe thought he was there to help you, because he wasn't taught the truth about health. He was taught about medicine, you know, things like that. Everybody's finding out that there's something behind the veil, because that wave that they were moving on, it's whoosh, it just pushed the curtain away. And so with this new range that we're having, new range of perception, those people that are in unconditional love and are willing to accept each point of view with compassion and realize that everything happens for a divine purpose, they're able to take all of these incoming frequencies that they weren't privy to before, these other frequencies of perception and understanding, and they're able to weave them into one harmonic vortex that is easily digestible by their consciousness, that understand it, because it is organizing everything in the rainbow so that the white light of truth can be created. And it's this 4th group that, because they're doing that, they're actually expanding who they are. They're expanding, you know, it's like your aura was working in a certain range around you, and as this polarization is occurring, it is creating a lot more movement in the aura, and because of this, some people are shrinking their aura. They're like, oh my god, it's too much for me. And other people are like, wow, this new movement is giving me new perception. You know, I'm able to harmonize this. I'm able to digest it. So can I get a little more and a little more and a little more? And they're literally expanding who they are. And when you connect to the 0 point, which is pure unconditional love, which does not resist anything, it uses everything as a tool to build upon. those people are actually tapping into infinite potentiality, infinite energy. But again, it's still a process, because with all responsibility, I mean, with all gift comes much is given, much is expected. So, I mean, it is that had yet to be explained
previously or understood previously, because it seems like you're working against the grain. But the truth of the matter is, the grain is about to take a new wave, and you're just the crest of that wave. There always has to be, the one push at the beginning. Somebody has to start it. And that's what this process is. So when we're talking about heart and we're talking about chemtrails and everything, keep in mind that we need to stay out of a dualistic mindset about these things. I'm not saying they're good and I'm not saying they're bad. I'm saying this is what consciousness, this is what God, this is what the Creator, this is what you, because they're one thing. When I say consciousness, when I say God, when I say you, I am seeing the Trinity as one. That's what that stands for. It's you. It is all you, and we are all one. And by you, I don't mean your personality. You are not your personality. Your personality is what is created based on parameters that you're put in. You're put in certain parameters, you form a certain personality. What you are is the infinite potential behind that personality. Okay? Because your personality will change. Your personality changes. What is changing is not, it's not the source of who you are. What is changing is the process that you're experiencing. Who you are is the unchangeable. It's what's inside. It's unconditional love. You are unconditional love. It is being. You are being. And it is the change that is, it's the changing that is giving you the experience of movement, basically. So it's very important to, when you see chemtrails, when you talk about heart, to not have a feeling of anger or disdain, but to send it love and realize that these chemtrails that they're spraying out, these metal particles that have a charge, you can actually influence them. Stop being in the place of a victim. We need to stop being in the victim place and say, okay, this is our reality. We created it. We created this this sci-fi thriller movie that we can be the heroes of. I mean, think about it. When you're a kid, what do you want? You want to be the hero of your own movie. That's what this is. We're here to be global heroes as one and have the biggest planetary jubilee possible. So in order to do that, we have to take what we are given and make from it. You know, you're given lemons, make lemonade. That's exactly what this is. So the polarized chemtrails, the polarized metal particles that are passing the blood-brain barrier, that are helping them to read our minds and our auras and all of this and that stuff, you know, instead of looking at it as an intrusion into your privacy, which, I mean, you know, it is, but let's just look at what we can do with that. When we remove the need to have privacy, we can then become truly telepathic. We can then truly share all of ourselves. The only reason we don't want to share some of ourselves is because of the imposed contraction. You know, it's like you don't want to tell your parents that you did something because you could get in trouble. Okay? When you remove the distortion that God is an angry God who's going to punish you, and you realize that nothing is punishment, everything is a learning process, then you don't have to be afraid to tell your truth. You'll realize that when you tell your truth, even if it may be difficult, even if it may cause a challenge in your life, you'll find out that that challenge always ends up refining and expanding you. And that's the important part. As a soul, you didn't come here to be cushy and comfortable. Not at all. You wouldn't have picked 3D for that. You came here to experience advanced
refined expansion. And those words, refine and expansion, they can seem like opposites. Refinement is almost like a contraction. It's almost like it's like fractalizing, looking at the close aspects, whereas expansion is widening, looking at the big picture. So the secret is to harmonize those opposites, and that's when you come up with a refined expansion. I really loved that term when I manifested, when I put the two together, because I was trying to think of a way to explain that, yes, we are expanding, but we're also refining ourselves. We're going into the details, and we do this in an up and down type of motion. So instead of, having good times and bad times, we're having times of expansion and times of refinement. And neither are specifically good or bad. Sometimes expansion can be, and sometimes refinement can be, but we realize their divine purpose, and that's what's important. I gotta go check on some food. Stay-at-home mom. Wanted to be with my kid, so give me a second, and